Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, as Marylanders flock to Ocean City for vacation, should there be wind farms off the coast for them to look at? Election shakeup, John Delaney announces that he will not seek re-election. State's Attorney John McCarthy warns the county council about the growing gang problem. Mark Elrich reintroduces the $15 minimum wage bill. And as we head into the August recess, how would you rate the first 6 months of the Trump presidency? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by former Rockville Mayor Susan Hoffmann, multimedia consultant Jerry Cave, former congressional candidate Liz Matory, and political strategist Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. 2 weeks ago, Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy, addressing the County Council, expressed his concern about the growing gang problem here in Montgomery County. Liz, in the past several months here and elsewhere, there have been reports of growing gang violence. WJLA has reported that over the past 6-week period, Immigration and Customs Enforcement have arrested 1,400 suspected gang members. And today it was announced that Attorney General Jeff Sessions is traveling to El Salvador to seek its cooperation in the battle. Why has the problem grown to such an extent?
I would argue that it has been allowed to grow and fester. And since Ike Leggett was my tort professor in law school, I will say it's malfeasance based on people encouraging people to break the law and take advantage of our system. And we've been warning this whole time that the bad people would be taking all of us for granted and take advantage of the system, and so therefore they have.
And the problem keeps going.
Absolutely.
Susan Hoffmann, the current Rockville mayor and council, famously voted to become a sanctuary city last month. As the former mayor of Rockville, would you have advocated that same policy?
Well, first of all, they didn't vote to make it a sanctuary city. What they did was codify what was already in practice, which is for the police not to call ICE if someone is arrested and not to look into whether or not they're illegal unless they've committed a felony.
Right.
Arose by any other name.
So they de facto made it a sanctuary city, and now we have the result of more gang violence.
Well, the one thing, though, that I am optimistic about is the state's attorney's office is working with the police department, and the council is going to vote in September on special funding. They're not going to wait till the next year. They're going to vote on special funding, which will take, I think, it's 6 or 7 votes, to give the state's attorney's office and the police department extra money to do some interesting things to, help address
the interesting thing.
Well, can I follow up on my answer?
The reason I brought this topic up, and I'll go to you, Susan, specifically for this. We've talked about this problem on the show quite a bit, but there's a growing recognition, I think, in the national news and locally about the extent of the problem. Wouldn't you agree?
There is absolutely no question that there is a problem and that it is significant. At the same time, people who have come here and are behaving themselves should not be afraid to go to the police if something is frightening them in their community.
But the issue is, as a former Democrat, I know absolutely positively that the Democratic Party has pandered and has created this Latino myth that every single person who's here is legal. We have laws on the books, and
that's not what I'm saying.
To break the laws.
Wait a minute,
that isn't the issue.
That is absolutely the issue.
Susan, you are right. But the problem is we now have cases of extreme violence and retribution.
Absolutely.
That are preventing,
and the police,
that are preying on the same community.
And the police need to come down hard on that.
In this county.
And there are young children who are coming here, dreamers who are coming here and being taken advantage of by gangs. There's absolutely no question about that.
We got to keep moving because we have a very packed agenda for tonight. Months after a failed attempt to raise the Montgomery County minimum wage to $15 per hour, Councilmember Mark Elrich has reintroduced his proposal. Susan Heltemes, the county has commissioned a study on the economic impact of the increase in the minimum wage, and it should be completed soon. So why is Mr. Elrich introducing his legislation now?
It's my understanding that that report came out today. He has tweaked the legislation. He has had conversations, to my understanding, with the county executive because the county executive had real concerns dealing with nonprofits and small businesses. I don't know everything in the legislation, and I don't know what the report says, but I think he's very realistic. He's only one vote away in the council, and you never know what's going to happen next year with an election. So,
Jerry, there was a interesting report from the West Coast about the devastating economic impact on the city of Seattle when they imposed a $15 wage. It actually had a negative impact on low-wage earning individuals. So is this just a political stunt in an election year, or is this a meaningful proposal?
It's part of the Democratic policy to take advantage of the most vulnerable people we have here, which are young people, people with no skills, because it puts them out of work. You don't need a new study. You don't need a study from the West Coast. They've known this since the 40s. When you increase minimum wage, you increase unemployment, you need to look at results and not intentions. Thomas Sowell has written about this. Milton Friedman has written about this. All you need to do is study what's already happened.
But
this has been consistent policy by the Democratic Party to put people out of work.
But this is one of the most expensive areas to live.
Yeah, but it's also,
you're going to put them out of work. They need experience working.
Our unemployment rate is so low that it is practically zero. There is no concern about unemployment. That is an absolute. That is completely specious. That is specious and false.
Well, then why won't you trust the market to set the wages?
I'm not defending what Mr. Elrich did.
You're not defending that?
No, I'm not.
Are
But
you
don't
gonna
say
defend
that
What I
raising the
wanna
minimum
go back to,
wage
Casey,
hurts
is
the
that
economy
report
and
you
creates
said
about
unemployment.
Seattle
It creates
is not a
unemployment,
good
and it's
report.
done it
Other
every
reports
time.
have come out and
Go
said
back
the
to
We gotta wrap it up.
opposite.
We got, boys and girls, we got to wrap it up. One would think that a $1.4 billion project that would bring lots of needed development to the Eastern Shore and was environmentally friendly, of course, would receive universal support here in liberal Maryland. Yet, officials in Ocean City are resisting a plan to build 187 wind turbines off the Maryland coast. Susan Heltemes, the proposed wind farm is going to be built 17 miles off the coast. It'll be a mere speck on the horizon. So why is there so much opposition to this?
There is not a lot of opposition. Andy Harris, the Say No to Washington, D.C. legislation, has now gone to Congress and said, say no to this. And he cites one person, the mayor of Ocean City. It has gotten approval across the board in Maryland. People are excited about it. We have to go other places to get away from, alternate. I hate that word. I hate that word. We have to look at alternative energy sources. This is the logical way. 17 miles out. Only if you're on a huge yacht or a cargo ship are you going to see it.
What are we going to do with the migratory birds that are going to be chewed up in those propellers?
Jerry, I'm
Put
sure
you
you're
in charge of them.
I'm sure you're sincere in your
The little
question.
bird told me this.
But I want to go to Liz on this. Doesn't it strike you a little bit odd that Congressman Andy Harris is trying to block this project?
It's not odd, actually, because when they were pushing it, this was one of O'Malley's, jewels in his crown, and it was thwarted, particularly about the national security issues. I think the issue is that we have the submarines and all the other traffic between the different ports that they're concerned about, and so I think that there's an issue with balancing. That's a concern that I've heard from
Andy Harris probably.
No, it wasn't Andy Harris. It was the fact that
He's not Mr. Liberal. You're talking about liberal Maryland, and he's the one Republican in the delegation.
However, our border is specific.
I think you can smell a political rat here, but I mean, there's very
seriously.
I think they've addressed the issues of the environmental impact on the city of Ocean City. They're supportive of windmills off the coast of Delaware. This is just
Andy Harris.
All joking aside, windmills kill thousands of birds.
They do.
They are economically untenable except with legislation that props up their value. This is stupid. wind turbines are stupid everywhere. When the technology is there, then do it. But we are
Why do you think
decades
the
away from
technology
that.
is there, is
It's
this,
not.
Is this
It's only
project being
cost effective
subsidized?
when it has
Is
subsidies
this being
and
subsidized?
government. Yeah.
How do you propose that we're going to create energy in the future if
Whoa,
we don't?
we are the Saudi Arabia of coal, natural gas, shale oil. We have got energy resources out
And
the
we
ears.
dropped out of the Paris Accord, so what the hell? Bring it on. And when you get an
Paris-
You know,
alternative.
Susan, it's great to have you on the bus. Welcome. It's good to have you on the energy bus.
Yeah, like hell.
Jobs,
Susan,
decreases
say
the
this.
deficit,
Say
the
this after
security
me.
deficit.
Drill, baby,
No.
drill.
And do you know that last
Oh
year?
my God! And the prices have gone down for the American
And
consumer.
last
How
year,
awful.
I believe 1,260
Birds
people
got
in
killed
Maryland.
in wind
That would be
turbines.
one turbine one day at the rate you're going. But 1,260 people got jobs last year in Maryland because of alternative energy resources.
It's a fraction of what we'd get if they would do fracking up in Western Maryland, like Pennsylvania and West Virginia do.
And who blocked
they
that?
need the jobs
all
up
the,
Who
there.
blocked that?
all the Democrats.
The,
from Montgomery.
the
that?
people
Rhinos.
in the western part
Yeah.
of the state don't necessarily want it because I've talked to them.
I know you've got your
We got-
you
we
got
got-
your
I know we're
thumb
having
on the pulse of the
earthquakes.
conservatives in Western
Jerry and
Maryland.
Susan, I know we've had a lot of fun with this topic, and we got to wind it up. And
Jerry's
go,
wrong.
And go to break. When we come back from this short break, ladies and gentlemen, start your campaign. John Delaney announced that he won't seek re-election. There's an empty congressional seat for you to run at. And after 6 months in office, how would you rate the Trump presidency? Stay tuned. And welcome back. Although there has been discussions and speculation for months, Congressman John Delaney announced today that he was no longer going to seek re-election to the 6th Congressional District. And he made another great announcement that he is going to be the first Democrat in the 2020 election cycle. Susan Hoffmann, the speculation was that Delaney would run for either Montgomery County executive or governor. Isn't this kind of a big shock?
Well, it's not a big shock to me because I have heard rumblings, shall we say, that he was considering the presidency in 2020 and has been seriously thinking about it for a very long time. So this is not a sudden, quirky decision he's made. I think that he sees a path to it. I think he is personally well-funded and can raise lots of money. And his background as a self-made, very successful businessman and somewhat of a centrist in the country just might be the bill that needs to be filled in 2020.
Well, let's see about that. What your fellow Democrats say about that, because Susan Heltemes, Congressman Delaney has proven himself to be a centrist and a good government politician. But in this political climate, does Congressman Delaney have a chance of being elected by your party?
I was at a party with John Delaney last week, a couple of other congressmen, and we were talking, and I can truly say I haven't seen him so relaxed and carefree because he had made up his mind. And I think he is the ultimate pull yourself up. He grew up in a poor family. His parents didn't go to college.
that's
Wait a
right.
minute, let me finish.
You're not
He
addressing
made
the
his-
question,
I am
Susan.
if you let me finish.
The question
he
is,
made
will
his
your caucus, your Democratic caucus, which is dominated by the left wing, elect him?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say, is he's made
Well,
himself.
it's only a half-hour show, Susan.
I know, he made himself, and he has been able to work across the aisle. And what I see happening with him, unlike a lot of other candidates, there are conservatives and liberals and Republicans who have supported him in what he's done. And I think he is like an ideal
I have
pick.
something
But
nice
the
to
issue
say about
is, but the issue is, the reason why so many people on the right support him is because he's actually a Republican. The only reason why he became a Democrat is because of this horrible gerrymandering that happened in this state.
He
became a
votes
Democrat.
socially,
No,
he is
but he
a
came. He
Democrat.
is a quintessential conservative. The reason he has millions of dollars is because he's a capitalist. That is the problem. The only person,
can't be a
the only
Democrat
person,
and a capitalist?
No,
Not now.
not authentically, not in this day and age, and that's the reason why I left. Let's be honest. And quite frankly,
I also have something nice to say about John
he's a
Delaney.
Republican.
He's one of the richest men, and he's one of the smartest guys in Congress.
He is.
And he's one of the only Democrats that has over $80 million running for president and is under 80 years old.
No, he's a young man. He's got a lot of things.
He's going to be a formidable candidate.
I'm really surprised that you think that he's going to do well in your caucus. I mean, the strength of your party is.
But he's.
If you looked at certainly at the primaries last year, except for Mrs. Clinton, who was the establishment candidate, the energy and the movement all came from the liberal wing of the party, all from the Bernie wing.
He has years.
Socialist wing.
He has years, though. Now, a couple of years, he can go to places across the country, and when people hear his story and talk to him one-on-one, he comes across as a really genuine guy.
Right.
And I think you
another
can't
reason I won't like him.
underestimate him.
And the issue is, in the entire National Democratic Party, he is the only elected official who can make the case for white male Democrats. That's the last one they have. And so he is the last bastion of hope for them to be able to co-opt that aspect. And by the way, as I said before, he's actually a Republican.
Well, I don't want to underestimate Congressman Delaney, because I think he's done a remarkable job getting elected and remaining in office.
It's not that remarkable. I mean, the
He's a
cycle
million.
before last, he almost lost he only won by 2,000 votes. He's not
He
a
won,
great
didn't he?
candidate, but he's a very
won.
smart guy. And he is
Trump
someone that
lost
I
by
would look.
millions.
I would look at him as a formidable candidate if he wins the primary.
All right, well, let's go on to our last topic, which I'm sure is going to please everybody here. July 27th, 2017 may go down in history as one of the most calamitous days in U.S. politics. It started with the Republican-led Senate gearing up to pass the so-called skinny repeal of Obamacare, then segued when a profanity-laced interview by the incoming White House communications advisor attacked what is now the former White House chief of staff. Then several U.S. senators felt the necessity of coming to the defense of beleaguered Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And finally, Republican Senator John Delaney derailed the passage of the health care bill when he voted against the measure, which all leads us back to the question, how would you rate the first 6 months of the Trump administration? Jerry, the Wall Street Journal points out that despite few, if any, legislative accomplishments, the Trump administration has been a success in other areas. So how would you rate the first 6 months?
John, this is great. Trump is killing it everywhere across the board. The GOP Congress is the one that should have had the legislation ready. So that is on their plate. But Trump has done a great job taking over the courts for the next generation. He's done a great job with the stock market going up. As reported first here before anywhere else in the country, illegal immigration on the southern border is down 78%. He's done that with rhetoric. He didn't even have to use brick. The best thing is he is beating the media at their own game, and they don't even understand how. And 6 months from now, when I'm down in Louisiana, struggling on from thinking of my friends back home, is that Trump is going to be even more successful, and I don't know if there's enough Xanax for the Democrats up here to cope with that result.
Liz Matory, President Trump has successfully rolled back several of the more, what many thought were abuses of the Obama presidency. So in that sense, has he been a success?
With the power of the executive orders that unfortunately President Bush also had his fun with, yes, he is trying to recalibrate the balance of powers. He also, and I want to reiterate what Jerry had said, media has been trying to control public opinion for decades. And finally, we have platforms, for as long as we at least have them until they change those too, that has really democratized the conversation. And that's really what he's been able to benefit from. And I think that the average citizen feels that. And so unfortunately, you're getting a lot of New York, you're getting double the amounts of New York from the White House, but people elected him because they need change and they deserve it.
Well, now that we've heard from the Republicans, let's turn our attention to the Democrats and see if you share those same views. Susan Heltemes, a CNN news reporter, was criticized the other day for saying that she didn't consider Donald Trump her president. Do you agree with her, and how do you rate the first 6 weeks of the Trump administration?
I will say that Donald Trump is the president of the United States. I would rate him a D- at best. The health bill went down yesterday after the Republicans had voted against it for 7 years, never had a change. Donald Trump talked a lot, but didn't know the details, and never really had it. This week was really the worst in his life. And you forgot something yesterday. The Boy Scouts of America had to apologize by his behavior. The White House, the presidency, and the decorum that goes with it has gone away. I think he is in so much trouble right now because at last the Republicans are talking back, and I think his presidency is in danger and our country is in peril.
Well, thank you, Susan. Susan Hoffmann, Senator McCain's decision to vote against the health care bill was seen by many as an attempt to save the Republicans from themselves because he believes only a bipartisan bill can be supported by the American people. Is he correct? But is he also naive to think that a bipartisan bill is achievable?
I think John McCain's vote went very far in sealing his legacy. He will be considered a great statesman for having done that. It was courageous. He also saved a number of his Republican colleagues from being primaried from the right. They were able to vote for it, and it went down nonetheless. So he saved his party and saved his own legacy and reputation at the same time.
What I
Well,
think
let's end with the final question, though. How would you rate the first 6 months of the Trump presidency?
It is the land of chaos. Russia, Russia, Russia.
And do you know what's interesting? None of the Trump supporters are out there gleefully cheering, are saying anything.
Take a look to your left.
Oh, jump into social media. Look,
Stage
Susan,
left.
you've
No.
had a
Stage
half
left,
hour on
Susan.
this.
You've gotta
Look at
break out of
social
the
media.
bubble. You've gotta
Social
break
media
out of the
conservatives
bubble.
love Trump.
Do you know what's interesting?
You got 30 seconds, Susan. Wrap it up.
I saw CNN, I think it was up in Maine, talking about Susan Collins, and they said she did the right thing. We need health care. It is a right that all Americans
Well, then stop
deserve.
taking it away from
And-
middle-class
Right,
people
but the
who can't
Democrats
afford that.
destroyed health care
See,
in
this is-
2009,
this is-
and you don't want to admit it. You
we-
destroyed it.
We have to go to break. We're going to go on hiatus in about 25 minutes,
Not soon enough.
and so stay tuned for parting shots. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, Liz Matory.
So I would implore people to take advantage of the term limits and campaign finance, particularly people right of center, and run for either council or county executive. The Democrats have been taking advantage of these wonderful iterations, but we need more conservatives to counterbalance the devastation that has happened in our county. So I implore you to run for office.
Thank you. Susan Heltemes, your parting shot.
The University of Maryland women's Terrapins basketball team is going to Taipei, Taiwan in a couple of days to represent the United States in university games, which I wish them well. I am also sad to see that Bill Turk is leaving the Washington Post and he's moving to the Midwest. That's a loss for Montgomery County. And personally, I am saddened at the death of Jim Vance. He was my news guy. He loved DC, I loved him, and there is a great voice silenced in the media.
Thank you, Susan. Now the other Susan, Susan Hoffmann, your parting shot.
So Trump's nominee to head the criminal division of the U.S. Justice Department is Brian Benchkowski, who, when he left the Trump transition team, went to work for Alfa Bank, a Russian bank linked closely to Vladimir Putin. When A.G. Sessions' chief of staff asked if he was interested in being the head of the DOJ criminal division, he said he was interested. He's agreed to recuse himself from any matters associated with Alfa Bank, but he will not say if he will recuse himself from any investigations or prosecutions related to any ties between Russia and the Trump campaign. Really? That's the best they could find?
How's that uranium going?
Thank you, Susan. And Jerry Cave, and for the audience's sake, I would just want to let everyone know that Jerry Cave is moving to Louisiana, and he will be giving his final parting shot after a rousing 5-year run here on 21 This Week. Take it away, Jerry.
Well, we are involved in a culture war between Washington, which things happen at such a low level of quality and performance, it's ridiculous. And New York City, where Donald Trump comes from, where they operate at a much higher level. Donald Trump is creating success on a level that my fellows on this panel and elsewhere who are Democrats cannot begin to comprehend. And 6 months from now, things are going to be so good and Democrats are going to be so unhappy. It's really going to be wonderful. But before I go to Louisiana, I would like to leave you with these final words. I am so happy that I've been able to help and will continue to watch as we make America great again.
Thank you, Jerry. I want to thank the panel for being here tonight. This has been a tumultuous week, as Susan Heltemes alluded to in her parting shot. There's been much going back and forth, and the pressure to bring our government into a working fashion is an inordinate one. So for 21 this week, I will see you in September, and or lose you to a summer love.
There you go, Jerry.
Embarrassment.